Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Our guest today is Roudy Nassif from Viva Rays, a company making some of the coolest blue light blocking glasses we've seen in a while. Roudy is an engineer, health entrepreneur, and speaker that helps health coaches, entrepreneurs, and business owners to sleep better, enhancing their cognition and sharpness, have more energy and focus, and become more productive by offering the tools and strategies that they need in order to maximize healthy light while eliminating junk light from their lives. Roudy's educated more than 150 functional medicine and naturopathic doctors about the power of light and helping them optimize their personal as well as their patients' well-being. He taught us so much about light exposure, healthy light and junk light. We talked a lot about sunlight exposure, sleep-wake cycles, and other circadian biology points that we really enjoyed nerding out on. This episode is incredibly educational, and Roudy's passion and enthusiasm for teaching about light is contagious. Light exposure is an incredibly important aspect of health. Are you talking about it with your clients? A quick promotional message, and then we'll be on our way with this episode. We've just launched something that we're pretty excited about and wanted to share with you. My Primal Coach is a convenient app-based health coaching program that delivers daily lessons with actionable tips for losing weight, gaining strength and energy, sleeping better, managing stress, and more. It provides personal one-on-one coaching to help you stay on track and reach your wellness goals in just 12 weeks. My Primal Coach is developed and delivered by the team behind Primal Health Coach Institute, the first and preeminent ancestral health coaching school in existence. Primal Health Coach Institute has trained and certified thousands of successful health coaches across 75 countries around the world. We are experts in behavior change, and we understand how to get clients the results they desire. Our mission at My Primal Coach is the same as our mission with the Primal Health Coach Institute, to help 100 million people reclaim health and wellness through education and coaching. Check it out for yourself at myprimalcoach.com. We love to see who's listening out there, so please take a screen grab of your podcast player, add a little comment, and tag us on Instagram at Health Coach Radio. Don't forget the show notes for this episode and all previous episodes of Health Coach Radio can be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. Without further delay, let's go. Let's launch into learning about light with our guest, Roudy Nassif.
Welcome, Roudy. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. And you?
We're doing great. Erin and I were just chatting before you jumped on, talking about how much we love our blue blockers. So I see you wearing yours. So that's wonderful. But we would love to introduce you to the audience, but we'd love you to tell your story from your perspective. So would you mind just giving us a little bit of a background story about who Roudy is?
Yeah, definitely. Oftentimes people ask me, how did you start Viva Rays and why did you dive into things about light? Mm-hmm. And my story with light actually began since I was a kid. Being diagnosed with ADHD, mm-hmm. I suffered from headaches, agitation, and inability to focus. And growing up, I really struggled through my engineering school, staying up very late at night, feeling wired and stimulated, only to lack the energy, focus, and motivation the following day. And eventually, day after day, this led me to brain fog, chronic fatigue, and depression. And it was really sabotaging my professional life and my relationships with my loved ones. So I was desperately looking for a solution in order to function. And as I kept going from one holistic doctor to another, I honestly felt exhausted and overwhelmed with all the different health opinions. Mm-hmm. And I tried so many different diets, supplements, and I've always been into meditating and exercising. However, nothing really worked for me. And miraculously, one specific event changed all of this. I spent 6 weeks on a farm, being exposed only to natural light during the day and fire and candlelight during the evening. And within a matter of days, I started sleeping peacefully through the night to then wake up before the sunrise for the first time in my life, feeling refreshed, energized, and motivated. I literally went from feeling foggy-headed, chronically fatigued and depressed, to feeling alive, vigorous, and motivated. I didn't change my diet. I didn't take supplements. And I didn't change the way I was meditating and exercising. I mean, how did that magic happen? And it seemed like my life magically transformed in as short as 3 days. And I couldn't wrap my mind around it. However, when my farming trip ended, I had to move back to the city. And at the time, I was living in Toronto. I don't know if you've been to Toronto, but the moment I stepped back, I was bombarded by artificial lights everywhere. Mm-hmm. And the contrast, for the first time in my life, I experienced it because I haven't been off the city. It was very intense. And within a few days, I fell back into my old, terrible routine of staying up late at night and waking up feeling tired, unfocused, and struggling with dips of focus and energy throughout the day. And at this point, I was contemplating whether it was my light environment that was causing all of this. Mm-hmm. And this question led me to a 7-year journey where I deeply studied about light, circadian rhythms, and the harmful effects of artificial light on humans. And I consulted and studied with world's leading experts and doctors in the field of circadian rhythm and neurobiology. And fortunately, throughout this journey, I learned the most advanced techniques and protocols that helped me to optimize my light nutrition in 2 ways. One, I was able to maximize my exposure to healthy light. And in another way, I was able to eliminate junk light from my life. And to be honest with you, maximizing healthy light was easy and straightforward when I learned the techniques. But eliminating junk light was very challenging because our modern world made it so impossible. I mean, this light is everywhere on our screens, phones, in the kitchen, in the washroom. When I go to the mall, when I go to the street, it's everywhere. So with that being said, I wasn't ready to give up. I really wanted to find a solution and still being able to function in the modern world. And I discovered about blue blocking glasses, which you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. And after trying so many glasses in the market, there was something was still wrong. And I didn't experience those benefits and the flow of energy that I experienced on the farm. And I was wondering why. And thanks to my mentors in the field of circadian rhythm and neurobiology, I understood from them that most of the companies were actually offering a one-for-all solution that blocked blue light in the same way all day without taking in consideration the timing of the day. And the light in nature continuously changed from daytime to solar noon to nighttime. So what I learned from them is that we needed a light management solution that is dynamic, which means that blocks blue light in different ways depending on the time of the day. And that really inspired me to start our own and collaborate with optic experts here in BC, which resulted in the production in an advanced 3-lens management system that is engineered to block different amounts of artificial light depending on the time of the day. And by that time, I completely transformed my struggle with focus and agitation and chronic fatigue. And all I wanted to do is to help everyone in the world to experience what I experienced, especially those kids who are suffering, those who are really unable to function because of their chronic fatigue and depression.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's very hard not to absorb your enthusiasm. It's really nice. It's nice to feel the enthusiasm coming from your story. There's so much that I'm really excited to jump into because I'm a huge circadian rhythm nerd. But let's keep the wheels on this a little bit here. So what I heard you say was you went on the 7-year journey of learning about circadian rhythm and artificial light. Now, those two things are similar, but also different, right? So the glasses are helping to manage this junk light. And then the circadian rhythm piece, this is more about the healthy, exposing to healthy light, which I actually think is a part of this conversation that is simply not talked about enough.
Right. I'd agree. Yep.
Right. So can we talk about healthy light? Can you share with us about healthy light? What do we need to know about that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you bring up circadian rhythm, and it's a very commonly used term, but not sure if it's understood enough. And circadian rhythms, I mean, circadian comes from the Latin word circa, which means about a day or 24 hours. And literally every biological species on Earth, from animals to plants to human, have this rhythm, okay? And even plants, for instance, they follow a 24-hour rhythm, and they have the ability, they have light sensors that enable them to anticipate the sun's position in the sky so that they can turn their leaves at every moment throughout the day and harness the solar energy. And they also drop their leaves down at night when the sun is not up. And this enables them to maximize their energy efficiency and energy intake. And just like plants, as humans, we also have light sensors in our eyes called Melanopsin ganglion cells. And these light sensors are most sensitive to blue light and much less sensitive to red light. So in a nutshell, when the sun is rising in the morning, there's an incline in brightness and in the blue and green colors. And those frequencies stimulate those melanopsin ganglion cells. And as a result, those cells send a signal to the brain that it's daytime. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we start feeling alert, focused, energized, and motivated. Now, when the sun is setting in the evening, those light sensors register the declining blue and green light waves. And they also send a signal to our brain, which affects all of the millions of cellular clocks in our body, to know that it's time to wind down and rejuvenate. And as a result, there's so many physiological responses that happen, like our core temperature drops down, our heartbeats go down, we start breathing more slowly, and all of our energy start being directed inwardly for cellular cleaning, rejuvenation, memory restoration, and emotional calibration. So with that being said, one of the most important events of the day is the first light that enters your eyes in the morning. Mm-hmm. The problem is that most people wake up and they stay indoors and they are exposed to dim artificial lighting that is not enough to stimulate those melanopsin ganglion cells. And as a result, they start feeling tired and fatigued at times when they are really supposed to be feeling at their peak energy and performance. Mm-hmm. And in order to access this peak energy and performance, we really got to go outside and face east and look at the rising sun, because this sun provides all the energy that we need to activate all the neurotransmitter and neuromodulators that will give us all that we need in order to be productive, happy, and focused for the day. There's a lot of different things that happen when we get the light in our eyes that we can explore more as we talk about cortisol and melatonin and those different cycles.
Oh, yes. Oh,
But
yes.
long story short, this is one of the most important events of the day.
I love it. I want to just kind of summarize that because it was really wonderful. So, because it was interesting is I think people who have been learning about, light exposure, blue light, red light, these sort of spectrums of light. Now I'm guilty of this too. To me, sunrise and sunset were the same, right? They're amber, and solar noon is the blue light, part of the day. But what I heard you say is that we have increasing blue light, that increasing blue, I guess, hue in the sunrise, and the decreasing blue hue in the sunset is actually what's triggering the cascade. It's not just the color spectrum themselves, it's the increase and the change, the sort of dynamic change of it, which I think was interesting. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting too, because as somebody who really values circadian rhythm, I'm wearing the melatonin molecule around my neck. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like I keep my home dim, and I thought that was pretty good. So I'm up in Canada as well. So it's very dark, obviously, in the mornings. My house is lit very dim. I have incandescent bulbs. I don't go down the LED. I haven't gone there. I actually stockpiled 3,000 incandescent bulbs in my shed when I stopped making them. I know that sounds crazy. But actually, that dim artificial light is still not enough. It's not doing what my brain needs to trigger this wakefulness cascade. It is literally going out and looking east at the sun.
Right. Yeah. So I guess here's the deal. When we talk about light, we got to understand that we respond to light differently during the day versus at night. And the reason so, I mentioned the Melanopsin ganglion cells. Mm-hmm. Those light sensors, they're we could present it this way. Our retinal sensitivity when we first wake up is very low, which means those Melanopsin ganglion cells are looking for a lot of bright light to be activated. Okay. Whereas during the evening, our retinal sensitivity becomes very high, meaning that those Melanopsin ganglion cells could easily be triggered by the slightest amount of artificial lighting. And even incandescent bulbs are enough to shift our circadian rhythm and sleep cycle in the wrong direction. So what we really want to do is when we wake up in the morning, we don't really need to worry about artificial lighting. Okay. We want to ultimately get the rising sun, but if the sun hasn't rose yet, artificial lighting is okay, because again, in the morning when we wake up, we need a lot of lux. We need a lot of photonic lux in order to activate those Melanopsin ganglion cells in the right way. Whereas at night, we really got to be careful. Mm-hmm. And anytime we watch the sunset, we come back home. That's where it's fundamentally important to wear some really high quality lens technology system that is designed to block the blue and the green. But not only this, it should be designed as well to reduce the brightness tremendously, because it has recently come to light that not only blue and green light could negatively affect our melatonin cycle, but also bright light of any color at night could shift our circadian rhythm in the wrong direction. And I know that so many people use their bright red light therapy at night.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask
that. Detrimental as being exposed to a screen. So we really gotta make sure that we have reduced the brightness at home, and that we're wearing high quality lens technology system. And also something that not so many people realize is that overhead lighting stimulate Melanopsin ganglion cells much more than light that is at the eye level. And the reason so is because Melanopsin is situated in the bottom half of the eye. And because of the nature of our retina, there's an inversion that happens, which means that those Melanopsin could perceive the overhead lighting. And this makes sense because sunlight is overhead.
Right.
So a really good tip is to turn on your dim lighting that is at a floor level and turn off all the overhead lighting, as well as putting a high quality lens technology, glasses that are designed to filter out those frequencies that we're not supposed to see at night.
Wow.
Wow. So, because I was going to ask about red light saunas and red light therapy, because, you know, just kind of staying on this sort of healthy light theme for a little while before we get into the junk light. You know, because to Erin's point, in the wintertime, for many of us, it's still dark in the morning. So you're saying it's okay to turn on that brighter artificial light in the beginning. And then, so do you have an opinion then as far as managing this? Because I don't know about Erin, but the vast majority of my clients have some sort of circadian rhythm issue, some sort of sleep issue that we try to address, you know, biochemically through food and movement. But I've always been an advocate for getting outside as much as possible and exposure to real natural light. We were talking about how geeky I am with my blue light blocking glasses. The minute the sun's supposed to be coming down, I put them on. Everyone thinks I'm weird, but I travel with them. You know, so I totally buy into this. I know Erin does, and I think there's a lot of health coaches that do. So from the standpoint of getting access to healthy light and how health coaches can work with their clients on better choices, different behaviors, and habits to build as far as accessing healthy light, what would be, I guess, your top 3, do your best to try to, you know, exhibit these behaviors or habits to try to access as much healthy light as we can?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, circadian rhythm is deeply affected by light. And light is the most powerful signal that shifts our circadian rhythm. But what most people don't realize is temperature is the effector.
Oh.
And I'm going to explain this a little bit more. Let's visualize a musical symphony with many musical players. And in order for this musical player to produce harmonious music, they gotta be guided by a conductor that reads the musical notes and let them know what to do. Now, in our body, this conductor is the master clock in the hypothalamus. And this master clock receives light signals from sunlight, which you could think of as the musical notes in this case. And it signals to the millions of cellular clocks in our body what to do. And it's how our body knows when to wake up in the morning, when to think of big problems and be creative, when to eat and digest, and when to go to sleep at night. Now, we can think of the temperature as the effector. What does that mean? In a musical symphony, if the light notes are the signal or the sunlight signal, then the body movement of the conductor will be the effector. It's through this body movement that everything else is sinking into a unified musical harmony, okay? And when we wake up first thing in the morning, let's say we go outside or we turn on some bright artificial lights. It's gonna be very different with bright artificial lights because there's not enough lux, photonic lux, that will stimulate 100,000 lux. And in the morning, when we wake up, we really need 100,000 lux approximately in order to trigger that central clock. So if we're getting that on a bright day from sunlight, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get that response and to trigger that central clock in the right direction. Whereas if the sun wasn't up and we were getting that light from artificial light, it's probably going to take an hour to an hour 15 minutes of being exposed to that light to trigger the central clock in the right way. Now, when this happens, automatically there's a raise in our body temperature. Mm-hmm. And again, how do you think all of these millions of cellular clocks gets unified into doing one thing? Well, the pancreas is very different than the central clock in the brain, and they're doing different things. But what happens is when this light enters, our central clock communicates with all these different clocks by using temperature, and it regulates the temperature of all these different cells, so much so that they know that the day is starting. And this means that the temperature increases. So if we take this piece of information and we think, how can we put it into action? Well, it's easy. We got to do anything in the morning that will raise our body temperature up. And that could be exercising, going into cold water, eating a big breakfast, and being exposed to a lot of light in the morning. Now, if you combine those four together, that's even better. You're going to get a much better effect. And if you wake up in the morning and the sun is not there, no problem. You could start exercising and going in cold water. And this is literally going to increase your body temperature so much so that you're going to be wanting to go to sleep earlier the same day and waking up earlier the following day. And this has to do also with the time through which we have the power to influence our circadian rhythm, because there's a circadian dead zone where no matter how much light we get and no matter how much we play with our temperature, we're not going to affect our circadian rhythm. And this happens approximately 3 hours from the time when we wake up. And this is why it's extremely important that the first 2 hours after you wake up, you take that time to optimizing your circadian rhythm, because that's the only time in the morning that you have that you could use in order to shift your circadian clock in the way you want to shift it.
I'm learning.
Wow. So that, I mean, so this, I'm connecting a lot of dots here. I mean, Erin and I were talking about how we love our chili pads because it helps us sleep, right? So the chili pad is a mattress pad that goes over your mattress that keeps you cool at night. And I know, whatever, I'm 50 years old now. I'm definitely premenopausal and my body temperature changes. And without that, I have a hard time but I do like that particular technology has the ability, instead of an alarm clock, I can just tell it, hey, at 6 o'clock in the morning, raise my bed temperature, and it will wake me up and we'll start that process. So I always thought it was just because I'm uncomfortable and I wake up, but this is likely adjusting my circadian rhythm and telling my body it's time to wake up.
Totally. I mean, what most people don't realize is that we have the most advanced internal alarm clock in our body. And this alarm clock functions perfectly when we give it the right cues.
Yeah.
The right cues come from the inclining light and the inclining temperature. Anytime the light is inclining, the temperature is inclining. Yeah. And anytime the light is declining, you got to think that the temperature is declining. Yeah. And you start living in harmony with that. And if you start doing the things that are harmonious with this equation, a lot of things will change. And even I bet that your internal alarm clock will start happening without that mattress. Mm-hmm. And I know that this mattress is wonderful because it could add to this equation. But if your cortisol melatonin cycle are working harmoniously with the rise and the fall of the sun, then you don't need it. Have the power to design your circadian rhythm the way you want to.
I love that.
I'm just learning so much and I'm so excited. I'm really excited. I'm actually going to share this episode with my clients because I'm always talking about how amazing things happen when we get into harmony with our bodies, because we're going to talk about this for sure, but we're still here for this time being. But a lot of my clients come to me with health concerns, including things like fat loss. And there's a lack of synchronicity with our nature that I think is foundational to, well, just health. So I do want to talk about that, but I also just want to bring up one thing, because when you said that the warming temperature thing, I got really excited because one of the first things I do in the morning is go in the hot tub. But you're saying
cold water.
You're saying I have to go into cold water and I don't want to. Why wouldn't hot water help with that?
Well, because it's an after effect. When you go in the hot water and then you leave the hot water, your core temperatures start cooling down. Mm-hmm. Oh. Because and you want to go in that hot tub at night rather than in the morning. And in the morning, I know that it could be challenging to wake up and go right away in cold water. But what I usually do, I go running, or I do any type of exercise that will really raise my core temperature up. And at this point, it's much easier to go in cold water.
Yeah. So I mean, I get a lot of questions that ask about the best time of day to exercise. And, generally speaking, as a health coach that's working with a population that's already time challenged, I'm like, when you have just move, but I guess if we're really getting geeky, and we do have the luxury to literally design our entire day to nurture this, you're saying the morning time is likely the best time to get your exercise in, assuming, of course, you don't have the luxury to just move more during the entire day, like someone like I do. Since I work from home, I walk around. I'm always moving. But if I had to pick a workout time, is that your general recommendation? Like first thing in the morning is probably best?
There are two times during the day that are really best. And the answer to why is that is throughout our biological evolution, our ancestors had to wake up at dawn before sunrise if they wanted to be good hunters.
Right.
And they traveled for so many different miles going on hunting. And this allowed them enough time to forage if they couldn't hunt. And basically in the afternoon, they have had to have enough muscle tone to run back all the distance that they traveled. And this means that in our biological evolution, our blueprint is such that we're designed to work out first thing in the morning, and then later in the afternoon when our core temperature peaks. And this is when we have the best muscle tone. Whereas morning exercise is what gives us the most optimal energy throughout the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that, because I've noticed from the standpoint, so I owned a gym for a number of years. Our class first thing in the morning was always the most popular, but then like that 4 o'clock class too.
Sure.
I've always felt best at around 4 o'clock, like the before dinner. I had the most energy. My mind was with it. I felt stronger at that time of day. So that makes a ton of sense to me. I think it's fantastic. I had a question too, though, because my ex-husband used to play hockey, and the only time they could get ice time was at 10 o'clock at night. And my current husband plays soccer, and his games during the week are always at like 8:30. And then he comes home and he can't freaking sleep very well. Okay. And it's got to have to do with that. So do you have any sort of, I guess, advice or hacks for folks whose lifestyle is such that within a certain, I guess you could just tell them not to play those sports or find something in the afternoon on the weekend. But what about people that sort of work late? What are some things they can do to try to help the body sort of cool down and wind down to get a better night's sleep?
Well, my hope is that we'll get to a level in our society where we are really harmoniously working with those cycles and respecting ourselves and our biological evolution.
Yeah.
Until we get there, I guess the best way is to come back home, not eat, because having a big dinner will also raise your body temperature up and will require a lot of energy from your organs to be digesting, which means that your organs are not going to be able to use that energy for doing the work that they are designed to do at night while sleeping, which consists of detoxifying and cleaning and repairing. So number one thing is not eating when they come back. Number two is taking a hot shower so that their core temperature drops down. Number three, putting on a high quality lens technology system that is designed to filter out the harmful frequencies that confuse the brain. And number four is really getting into an ambient environment, and they could design this so much so that it's a relaxing one with candles, with nice music, maybe a nice massage, all of these things that are designed to bring safety and to bring a sense of activating our parasympathetic state, digest and calm down will be useful for anyone who is on a schedule that is not fully in harmony with the sun.
That's great. That's
Thank
really
you for
great
that.
advice.
Yep.
Yeah. So just sneaking back a bit in the early part of the day. So we talked about that sort of there's a few hours in the morning, maybe the first influence your circadian rhythm. And then there's this dead zone. And then can we talk about what happens at noon? Because when I speak to my clients about trying to get them to connect to this, this rhythm, it's like, if you can get early morning daylight into your eyes, That's important. Dim light in the evening is important to, sort of hone this rhythm. And then is there importance about exposing yourself to the midday sort of solar noon, very blue light?
Yeah, definitely. There's medicine in every moment of the day, because there's different frequencies that trigger and activate different enzymes and different metabolic processes. And I'll dive deeper in this. But before I dive in, I'd like to offer the audience, and I know that a lot of them are health coaches that work with clients and entrepreneurs who are looking to elevate their game, their productivity, and their focus to a whole new level. And for this, throughout my 7 years of studying light and circadian rhythm, I condensed this into an ebook or a guide. It's called Light, the Key to Mastering Your Sleep and Energy. And you could access this free guide on our website, www.vivarays.com. And I promise.
You spell that? We'll put it in the show notes, but
it's VIVARAYS.com. And it's packed with all the tools, strategies, and tips that you need in order to elevate your light environment to a whole new level, so that you can fully master your sleep, have more energy and focus, and become more productive at what you're doing. So,
nice. I love it.
Regarding sunlight, there are so many different important pieces with sunlight and our exposure to it. One of which is brightness, as I mentioned, because brightness increases and then decreases. And this is very important information for our bodies and brains to understand and navigate and orient themselves around day, evening, or nighttime, and therefore change and optimize their daily function depending on the time of the day. Now, another important aspect is the changing color temperature, which almost starts at 2000 kelvins around sunrise and goes all the way up to 6500 kelvins and then start dropping down. The third very important aspect is the richness of the spectrum. And that means the wavelength of light that we expose ourselves to. When the sun rises in the morning, it's very high in the blue, reds, and infrared. Now, infrared is the invisible aspect of sunlight. That is around 49% of sun is infrared. And it's extremely important and rich, because it turns out that this infrared is designed to improve our mitochondrial functioning. But not only this, it allows us to preload with light so that we could absorb solar noon, the UV coming from solar noon, without burning. Okay, so this is something very important. We got to get early in the morning and exposing as much of our bodies as possible to this high infrared light at times when UV is not present in the environment. And this will enable us to be able to absorb the UV of 12 noon much more efficiently and without burning. Now, UV light has been demonized. And this is fundamentally a big mistake that we have made, because the recent discoveries in quantum biophysics show the tremendous importance of UV light on our health. UVA, for instance, we have light sensors in the eyes called neuropsin, and they are very sensitive to UVA. And this wavelength of light turns out to be very important for regulating our circadian rhythm. And depending on where you live on Earth and whether you're up north or not, and depending on the season, UVA will start around 9 a.m. in the morning. And this is crucially very important time to be outside and to witness that. Okay. And UVA has been shown to lower our blood pressure and to increase nitric oxide production, and improves our circulation, as well as our sexual glands, and so many different things. So we don't want to be missing on that. And around 12 noon, almost, when the sun is the highest in the sky, that's when UVB starts. And UVB is the component that catalyzes the vitamin D production in our body. So it's also very important aspect of sunlight that we want to expose ourselves to. And you know, and this might not have to do a lot with circadian rhythm, but it has to do with so many different other hormonal and biological processes that are very important. And it's fundamentally important that we make sure that we get different exposures throughout the day, one of which is early morning sunlight. And then around 9 a.m., it's very important to go at least for 5 minutes. And what I usually tell my clients to do is to take those 5-minute breaks during the day, rather than taking cigarette breaks, getting into the consciousness of getting sun breaks, and going outside and exposing as much of our skin as possible, as much of our eyes as possible. And technically, as the sun is setting, this is fundamentally very important time to be outside, whether we're being exposed to the sun, directly or indirectly. It doesn't matter whether it's cloudy or not. It doesn't matter. We're still getting those light information into our system that our body will use to do the right thing at the right time of the day.
Yes. Oh, I love this. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I'm totally gonna butcher this, but I'd love to start moving the conversation toward this. The conversation in this podcast, it was the Huberman Lab podcast. So he talks a lot about biochemistry and, metabolism. He talks about metabolism quite a lot. So this was a metabolism episode, and he name dropped some receptor or something relating to melanin.
Right.
So relating to getting sun on your skin that then regulates metabolic processes like leptin, ghrelin, insulin. So can we kind of shift the conversation to how all of this plays with the rest of our biochemistry, maybe from a weight, fat gain, fat loss perspective, which I think is where a lot of our health coaches honestly play.
Yeah, totally. That's a great point. There's a lot to share about this from a perspective of maximizing healthy light as well as eliminating junk light.
Yeah.
I'm going to start from something that is very common, which is the habit that humans have adopted over the past 100 years, which is wearing sunglasses. The problem with that is that sunglasses block 100% of the UVA and UVB, and not to mention that they decrease the brightness tremendously and deplete the spectral curve of sunlight that is very nourishing to us. But the problem with that is our eyes are an extension of the brain, and they are the place through which light enters our system, and the only place through which we receive signals from the environment into our cells. And when we block 100% of the UVA and UVB through sunglasses, our brain do not understand that there's UV in the environment. And when this happens, even though we're being exposed to UV light, our skin stops producing melanin because it's not receiving the signal from the brain that there is UV in the environment. So number one thing that happens then, we start burning much more, because melanin is the component that protects our skin from burning.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
And another crazy thing that happens is it dysregulates our melanin production, which affects our leptin production. Now, leptin is the hormone that is stored in fat tissues, and it's released after every meal to signal to our brain that we're feeling full. Now, here's how leptin works from a circadian perspective. When it's completely dark outside, melatonin rises in response to this. And at this moment, leptin travels from the skin up to the hypothalamus in the brain, and it upregulates our thyroid hormone. And this causes us to secrete growth hormone, and it increases our metabolism. And what this means, that if this cycle happens harmoniously the way it's designed to happen, we're going to start burning fat at night while sleeping. And this is literally the most efficient mechanism that as a humans, we are designed to do and able to burn fat. There's no other mechanism in nature that enable us to burn fat as efficiently. Now, here's the problem. In our modern world, most people come back home after work and they are exposing themselves to a second sun long after the sun has set.
Yeah.
And this second sun confuses our brain about the time of the day, and it suppresses our melatonin production. And therefore, leptin stop doing what it's designed to do at night. And one, we start having carbs and sugar craving because of blue light that we're exposing ourselves to at the wrong time of the day. And two, we start our metabolism doesn't increase the way it's supposed to do, and we stop burning fat at night. And if you combine those two together, it's the perfect recipe for weight gain. And one more thing that will add to this is that chronically exposing ourselves to artificial blue light will increase reactive oxygen species. And this is literally the oxidative stress.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not to say that oxidative stress is bad, because it could be good. Even exercise increases our oxidative stress, and it causes us to produce antioxidants, and it triggers our immune system in a good way. But think about it. Do you ever exercise 24 hours per day? No. And if you did, you'll really be sabotaging yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our modern world, we are chronically exposed to high frequency blue light almost 24 hours per day. And this is really increasing our reactive oxygen species. And when this happens, it creates inflammation, and it starts blocking the signal of leptin to the brain, telling us that we're full. So we become leptin resistant. And when this happens, it's literally, our body doesn't know that we're full anymore. It starts having much more craving, and it sabotages our ability to burn fat at night. So with all of these factors together, we're literally going to gain so much weight and struggle with that, no matter how much we control our food intake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how about it, Erin? I mean, I hear this chronically, that my biggest issue, Laura, is after dinner. That right. Even though I'm not hungry, I'm still craving and I need to eat. And I never really made this connection. I mean, I knew that artificial light was bad for us, and I understood all this. I didn't understand the connection to leptin, and that the second sun is literally going to tell our bodies, hey, we still got hours going here. You should probably eat something. That's fascinating to me.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
It really
blown
is.
away.
It really is, because to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, Laura, is like our clients will say, my evening snacking habit is my great undoing. How can I stop snacking in the evening? And it's like, well, I don't know, eat more protein at supper, or, you know,
right.
But it's on many levels, it's this exposure to the second sun that's triggering. That's actually an easy fix when you think about it, because it's very hard for health coaches to help their clients fix their evening snacking habit. It's like, you can say things that are like, oh, we'll go for a bubble bath instead, which would be great. But do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, it's got to be
a multi-layered approach. Because I mean, to be fair, there's definitely a habitual thing that happens that people, I mean, I've had people tell me it's almost as though I don't feel like my day is over until I've sat down to, you know, insert whatever it is, a handful of M&Ms, a little bit of ice cream, some chips or whatever. So some of it is definitely habit, that a replacement exercise could be helpful there. But turning off the stinking light
and your blockers.
Yes, because, so here's the other thing. So this is my mother-in-law, it's mine too, but but she tells me that it actually helps her wind down to sit on the phone and play Candy Crush. So this is what's in her head, that she thinks this is what's calming her down. And it might be hitting a dopamine release that might be calming another response. But gosh, how do you overcome that? I mean, and look, to be fair, I used to fall asleep to the TV being on. And I thought I needed the TV. It wasn't until I really turned it off that I realized the problem was that the reason I needed the TV was because my own mind was racing. And this allowed me to kind of tune things out. But I didn't sleep well. I never slept well. I didn't wake up refreshed. She doesn't either. She wakes up super groggy in the morning, you know? So I would kind of, I don't know. So maybe we get into the unhealthy light now. Maybe this is really the junk light conversation we move into. And I think most of us can probably identify the big ones, but maybe we start there. And I'd love for you to share some that you think most people don't realize.
Well, what you're saying there makes perfect sense to me. And for so many years, when I was still struggling with my chronic fatigue and disorientation, I was stuck in a cycle where I would feel so wired and stimulated at night, but I've convinced myself that this is my creative time, and it's the time that I could function best because I'm a night owl, which is a big myth. And it turns out that it's very related to our light habits. But here's the thing. There's a scientist called Fritz Holwich from Germany back in the 1970s. He published some studies showing how artificial blue light, sitting under those lights, increases our cortisol level significantly. Okay, and since cortisol's role is to provide glucose and sugar for the natural fight and flight mechanism, this increases our blood sugar level instantly.
Right.
When this happens, we start having much more carbs and sugar craving. And additionally, one of my other mentors, Dr. Sachin Patel, he always say that a chaotic blood sugar level is equal to a chaotic mind and chaotic emotion. And this makes perfect sense, because when we experience this sudden drop in our glucose level, we start feeling very emotional, so much so that we tend to make poor choices in the food that we pick. So if we had the choice to pick between organic, healthy foods and sugar, we'll most probably go towards starchy, carby, sugary stuff. And with that being said, what could be really triggering this is this intense increase of cortisol levels. And if this happens repetitively again and again and again, we build a pattern around it that we start feeling soothed through that food or sugar or carbs that we're getting at night, which gives us the illusion that it's calming out our mind. But then the problem is not stemming from there. The problem is stemming from very high cortisol, and that instinctively we're trying to solve that problem by eating and shutting down the emotional response that we're feeling.
Yeah, it's like a conditioned response is what it ends up being. Like Pavlov.
Totally. And, you know, for this, I guess one of the most advanced or practical things that we could do is committing ourselves to going and watching the sunset every single night. Because we mentioned retinal sensitivity earlier in the episode, but it turns out that when we watch the sunset, it adjusts down our retinal sensitivity, so much so that we become a little bit less sensitive to artificial lights afterwards, which is great. That's a great thing to have. Also, sunset regulates our serotonin and dopamine. I'm going to talk a little bit about serotonin because it's a very important neuromodulator that is often very missing in our society. Is the component that allows us to experience this inner calm and inner connection, and it gives us this sense of intuition and connection with a much deeper aspect of ourselves. Now, why is that important? Because after we watch the sunset and we have healthy serotonin level, we are designed to come back home. And this time when it's dark outside, that's what I call the time where we turn on our inner light and we go inwards. And what that means is this time is literally designed for us to use it for contemplation, and imagination. And when our serotonin level is high or balanced, so to speak, we are much capable of sitting with ourselves and calming our minds down so that we can tap into that mode of creation. And we are creators. And if we're not creating, we're disintegrating, and we start falling into habits that are sabotaging to our soul, because it's in our nature that we want to create, that we want to tap into our powers of imagining and meditating and contemplating, because I believe that our spirit is always for growth and expansion. And when we stop that process, that natural process of expansion, we put ourselves in a zone of self-sabotaging, because something within us tells us that there's something wrong, that we're not going after the things that we're designed to go after. So that dark time at night is extremely important to really shut down our sensory perception, the overstimulation that comes all the time through our five senses about the objective world, and take that time to go subjectively, go within, go to that place in you that is beyond conditions, circumstances, and environment, that place through which we can create anything that we wish, and we can be anyone that we want. So, and this is the time to do this. And when people start getting into the habit of turning off those lights and turning off all this sensory stimulation that is continuously seeking our attention, then at this moment, we have the power to direct our attention within towards the things that we want to create in our life. What do you want? And this is a powerful time to create what you want.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And as health coaches listening that are working towards their business, becoming more successful, thinking through how you want to grow, do you want to pivot? This is a great time. It's just a much better use of your time than Netflix, right?
Or even crushing hours on Instagram, this is for my business. I have to get more followers, and it's just a real paradigm shift in terms of productivity,
Totally.
So, other than turning off the overhead lights, perhaps turning off the TV, how do you suggest folks turn their home environment into a more nurturing sort of circadian rhythm balancing environment?
Yeah, totally. For this, I'd like to mention Dr. Samir Hattar. He's a circadian expert. And he recently published a paper showing that the slight amount of artificial light arriving at the eyes at night is enough to suppress our dopamine production and negatively affect our memory and cognition the second day. And well, so many people think like, okay, so what? Well, if you're a coach, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're someone who's creating their own reality and their own businesses and is wanting to create a big impact in the world, this means that you truly need to pay attention to this miraculous molecule called dopamine, because this is the molecule that gives us the inspiration, motivation, and the power to go after what we aspire for in life, to achieve our goals. And not only this, dopamine increases our ability to make decisions. It enhances our capability to perceive the patterns in our life and perceive the bigger picture, and also enable us to think outside of the box. And if you're a coach listening or an entrepreneur, I bet that you agree with me that we need those qualities in order to thrive and to truly get what we want in life and create that beautiful impact that we want to create in the life of millions. So with that being said, you really want to make sure that you take care of your dopamine level. And the best ways to take care of your dopamine levels is to take care of your evening routine and create an environment that will support you in that. Now, what does that mean? It means, first, again, I mentioned watching the sunset, and I want to re-emphasize this. And this is very important. Watching the sunset, coming back home, and arriving to an environment that is supportive of rejuvenation. I bet that everyone within them know what that looks like. And you got to love yourself enough to make this happen. Maybe Himalayan salt lamps, maybe more candles, maybe some meditative music, and hanging out with family, with loved one, cuddling. All of these things increase our endorphins and stuff that will make us much more in our zone and in our flow. Okay, I personally like to take a hot bath at night with candles, and I like to make it super dark. I even, after making it dark, I still put my nighttime Viva Rays glasses because it makes it even more dark. And with time, I have realized that the darker it is outside, the more light it is within myself. And this is very important time for me to really create. So taking a hot bath, candles, dim lighting, high quality lens technology system like the Viva Rays glasses, hanging out with family and doing non-stimulating stuff like sharing some takeaways from the day, sharing about things that we really want to achieve in the upcoming year, things that makes us feel warm and engaged on a heart-centered level.
I love it. So tell us about, I want to hear more about your glasses, because you were talking about like what was it? Was it like a 3-stage lens process? Can you fill us in on how they're, because there's a lot of different blue light blocking glasses on the market, but you're right. They seem to all be either daytime that are clear. Okay, they kind of have that like iridescent blue film, or the amber or yellow sometimes I see. So tell us about yours and kind of how it's a little different.
Well, I love that you brought all these different aspects because it reminded me of the importance of talking about this, and it wasn't on my mind. So thank you for bringing the kind of colors, the clear, yellow, and amber.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, when I first understood the importance of light, and I mentioned buying so many different blue blockers from the market, they didn't work for me. The first pair that I bought was in clear lens. And after wearing it for a while, I didn't notice any benefits whatsoever. And I was so curious, like, why? Now, it wasn't until we teamed up with the optic experts in British Columbia, which enabled us to have state-of-the-art lab equipment, through which we were able to measure every lens on the market, as well as measure the light that is being emitted from the screens, devices, and LED bulbs. Now, here's the cool thing, and it's a bit funny, but the light that is emitted from the screen peaks at 455 nanometer in wavelength, okay? And when you take clear blue blockers lenses and you measure them, you'll see that they block the blue-purple light up to 420 nanometer, and they don't block any blue light above that. Now, why is that a problem? Because LED bulbs and screens do not emit any blue-purple light up to 420 nanometer. You could see that spectral curve on Google. It's everywhere. And they only peak at 455, which means when you're wearing a clear blue blockers, you're blocking blue light that is not emitted by those harmful devices and bulbs. It's like trying to rinse your quinoa in a pasta strainer. The quinoa will end up passing through the hole because it's the wrong filter, literally. So it's a waste of time and money, to be honest. And I do believe that, it was created based on ignorance and not based on knowing that they're not actually working.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the yellow ones during the day, which so many people wear, those are actually so problematic as well, because they block 100% of the blue light at 455 nanometer. And in the process of doing this, they wipe out all of the blue turquoise at 480 nanometer. Now, why is that a problem? Because the 480 nanometer wavelength is a very crucial wavelength in blue to reset our circadian rhythm. Right. This means if you're going about your day wearing your yellow daytime blockers and you're blocking a lot of that blue, you're actually setting yourself to circadian problems because your brain is not really understanding anymore that it's daytime.
Right.
And you start feeling drowsy and sleepy at times you are supposed to be functioning at your optimal. I hope this makes sense.
It does.
Oh, it does.
Thank you.
Completely. Yeah.
So like, let's talk a little bit about the difference between our daytime glasses and those two that I just mentioned. Our Viva Rays daytime glasses, we don't like to call them blue blockers because of all the marketing gimmick that is happening around that market. And those glasses, they're designed to reduce the sharpness of blue light at 455 nanometer particularly. And they're scientifically engineered to balance that light and make it more proportionate with the yellow and the green. Okay. And they are also designed to allow all of the blue turquoise at 480. So if you're sitting next to a window and you're getting that good blue, those glasses are not blocking that.
Wow.
And this means that you will still have all the energy that you need during the day in order to function optimally. And you will eliminate those eye strain, headaches, and eye fatigue that people often experience when sitting under those harsh artificial lights.
Okay, I just want to jump in with a quick question because I think this is amazing. So right now I'm staring at my computer monitor and a ring light, and there's a window behind it.
Right.
So if I'm wearing your daytime glasses, am I then blocking all this gross light, but still allowing the window light to come in?
Yeah. So after years of experiment, we truly wanted to design and engineer a lens that will address the sharpness of the blue that is coming from devices, yet enable that good blue that is coming from the window to still enter the eyes. And even with that being said, we still always tell our clients to go outdoors, remove the glasses completely, and get sunlight through the eyes, because this will enable you to stay in tune with the light outside. Okay. And yeah, I hope this answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, I moved my desk for work to sit right in front of the window.
Okay.
For this reason, I don't know, probably read an article or something. And I mean, I feel as though I'm not stuck inside all the time, but it doesn't face east. Like my backyard actually kind of faces southeast. So I will see the sun come up. And then one of the things my husband and I have been trying to do, we have to walk the dog anyway. So we try to go out, as the sun's going down, but I don't think I did that consciously. I just think it was time to kind of walk the dog, but that makes a lot of sense. Wait, what a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone, get your movement in. In our case, we're walking the dog and we're outside at an optimal time where we can kind of watch and experience the sun going down.
Right.
So from a coaching cue perspective, when we're talking with our clients about, ways to get more movement and then also ways to kind of just help support that circadian rhythm, there's multiple reasons to do something like that. Assuming, of course, weather-wise, you can do it. If I still lived in Illinois, I would have pushed back on that. It's cold in the winter, but there's got to be a way. So I guess that's also another question. What are your recommendations then for folks that like Aaron, or even, you're in Canada too, during the winter? Yeah, nurturing some of this stuff if it's just tougher for you to get outside.
Well, basically, the winter time and the cold temperature is designed to replace the lack of sunlight. Okay. And when we go into winter and there's a lack of light, our circadian response become much more attuned to temperature than light. So it's very important for Canadians living up north to start getting more comfortable with the temperature, because cold water increases your dopamine and serotonin in similar ways that sunlight does. And if sunlight is absent, then you really got to start taking the boost of dopamine and serotonin from cold water. And not only this, when you go in cold water, you activate a mechanism in your body where you start burning brown fat tissues into infrared heat. And in other words, you're activating your inner sun. And again, I mentioned 49% of sunlight is infrared. Now, when you go in cold water and when there's a lack of sunlight outside, you activate your inner sun because you're burning your fat into heat, into infrared light. And this infrared light is being used by the cells to structure the water around the cell, so much so that you can start producing much more energy. So that's something very important for people living up north.
Yeah. And so what do you think is the proper role for like red light therapy or red light saunas?
Well,
Or
the
is it
proper
a bunch of bunk?
well, I think that, you know, nothing can replace sunlight.
Yeah.
Anytime we can get that through the sun is the optimal choice. Now, at times when we can't, we want to get that infrared light from supplementing with bulbs. And we want to make sure that those bulbs are flicker free and they don't emit a lot of EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. And we also want to make sure that if we're being exposed to visible light from infrared, from red light, that we do it earlier in the day and not at night, because it will affect our melatonin production and shift our circadian rhythm in the wrong direction. So with that being said, I guess saunas and infrared lights are an amazing way to supplement for the lack of sunlight. However, when sunlight is present, nothing can replace sunlight. And also knowing that we are designed to activate our inner sun through going in the cold, that's something that I invite people to experiment with, because it's like nothing else, to be honest.
Yeah, very cool. Oh my
And I'd like to talk a little bit about the evening and the nighttime glasses.
Yeah, please.
Because you mentioned amber glasses, and the problem with those is the amber glasses used for evening and for nighttime are not enough, because again, when the sun sets, the color temperature that we experience as humans is around 1800 kelvins. And this is the same color temperature that we've evolved to see from the fire. And evolutionary, this light information has been such that it signals to our body that it's time to start to wind down, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been around a bonfire?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, and how do you feel when you are gathering around the bonfire?
Calm, right. Quiet energy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So there's this magic around the bonfire where we start feeling calm and quiet, yet we have enough energy to cook, dance, and socialize with our friends. And this is exactly why we designed the Viva Rays evening glasses. Now, as you can see, I'll talk a little bit more about our clip and go system.
Yeah.
After I explain about the lenses, but those evening glasses are engineered to mimic the color temperature of the bonfire at 1800 kelvins. And they block 100% of the blue, yet they keep enough green so you can still have the energy to run your evening tasks, cook, drive, and socialize with your friends without feeling very, very sleepy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And basically, after you finish from your evening activities, we ask people to switch into their nighttime glasses. And those are designed to block all of the blue, all of the green, and to decrease brightness by 20 times. Mm-hmm. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, brightness is also a very important aspect that many blue blocking glasses companies are not taking into consideration. Mm-hmm. And the reason why blocking blue, green, and brightness, because this will give the brain the full impression that it's completely dark outside, and therefore it will completely optimize your melatonin and growth hormone, so much so that you start sleeping deeply and rejuvenating through the night to then wake up the following morning feeling rested, refreshed, and feeling light and clear-minded, because that's how we're designed to wake up. And we are designed also to wake up naturally without alarm clocks. And what I tell people is that when they start implementing those light protocols and using the right tools, they're going to tap into their optimal circadian rhythm. Yeah. And what that means, that they're going to start knowing themselves about those optimal times throughout the day when they could finish so much more and be much more creative. And this means that they will be able to do a lot of work using much less energy and much less time, which I like to call the effortless way. And the effortless way is a reflection of a healthy rhythm.
So you have this clip and go system. So you buy, what do you buy? One basically set of frames, and then you've got these lenses that you can interchange.
Yeah,
just build on.
So you buy the base frame, which is the daytime frame.
Yeah.
And then you could seamlessly transition from one lens technology to the other simply by clipping them on. So let's say you watch the sunset, you come back home, you put your evening glasses, and then about an hour to an hour and a half before bedtime, you'd switch into the nighttime glasses. And that's when you completely zone out and go into your own zone of deeply winding down and rejuvenating.
So do you offer prescription glasses or clip-ons for people that wear glasses?
We do offer prescriptions. So the reason why this clip and go system is awesome is because it's much more affordable than buying 3 different frames.
Right.
And also it's much more convenient. You don't need to carry out 3 different frames all around. But also if you wear prescription, the cool thing about this, that you will need to order one prescription, which is for the frame, for the base frame. And then those guys will clip on seamlessly onto it, and you'll be saving a lot more money because 3 prescription could get pretty expensive.
This is so cool. What I'm excited about with this, all of this, is you just use my favorite word, which is effortless.
Right.
And because here's the deal: if we ask somebody to change the way they eat, there's inherently growing pains to those changes. It feels difficult in the body. It takes a while for people to get the benefits. But it seems to me that in training or encouraging clients to just start engaging with light differently, almost immediately feels good. Like every way you're describing it is like you have a restful sleep. You wake up without an alarm. You have more mental energy. You're creative. You're having these beautiful winding down routines. Like there's almost no resistance. There's less resistance for this kind of change because it feels good almost immediately, and it has so many benefits.
Totally.
To piggyback on that though, and I heard you say it, because this was something I wanted to ask, is those people that identify as a night person. Yeah. I'm not a morning person. I'm a night person, and I am the most efficient. I'm the brightest. I have the most energy at night. So, and I heard you say that's not really a thing. It's kind of a myth. So, because I could see that being a pushback. Well, I'm just a night person. You know, what do you say to that?
Well, I was stuck in this belief for so many years, trust me. And I was sabotaging myself by tuning into a wrong belief that doesn't pertain to reality. The truth is that we could be night owls, but that will differ by 30 to 40 minutes max.
Yeah.
How our sleep cycle will be different than a morning person. Okay. Now, the Dr. Sachin Panda, in his book about circadian rhythms, he mentions a study about a group of people who identified themselves as night owls, and they ran a study on those guys. And what they noticed is they took them on a camping trip, okay? And before going to the camping trip, they measured their cortisol and melatonin. And what they noticed is that their melatonin was being triggered much later in the night. And their cortisol also was very high at night. Now, when they went camping, the only thing that changed is that they didn't have access to artificial light at night, and they didn't have a fridge in the kitchen to open the fridge and eat whenever they want. And within 3 days, they remeasured their melatonin and cortisol levels. And what they saw is that their melatonin started peaking around 8:30, and those guys went to bed around 10 and woke up early before the sunrise, naturally, without an alarm clock. And this is a big proof that there's a big myth around the belief that we are night owls and that we function better at night. As humans, we are designed to function best when the sun is out. And my personal story is the biggest testimonial for that, because for so many years I was stuck in this cycle. And when I went to that farm, I mentioned that my life magically transformed in as short as 3 days.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's not magic. It happens by design. It happens by law. And this law is called the law of rhythm, because the day must turn into night. And in order for us to adapt to this daily change in our environment, we have had to develop an internal clock that governs the timing of our daily activities and allocating those activities to the perfect time of the day and the night. And this means that we are designed to function, think, and be creative during the day when the sun is up. We even digest much better when the sun is up.
Yeah.
Our organs function in a much better way, so much so that we need less energy and less time to digest the same quantity of food that we could be eating at night. And it will take our organs much longer and much more energy to go through it. So that's the effortless way, is working with nature.
Love it.
Oh, I love this conversation. Literally could just learn from you all day, but we do have to let you go. So thank you for sharing about your technology. And that's vivarays.com. I did download your ebook. That thing is huge. I can't wait to read it. That's like 58 pages. That's great. Where else can folks learn from you?
So we share a lot of our educational material on our Instagram, Viva Rays. Also, by signing up to our newsletter, we are very committed and very dedicated to share a lot of knowledge with our community. And this is because one of our main purposes in Viva Rays is to create a world where we don't need our glasses anymore. Right. And this means that we need to elevate humanity's consciousness into a whole new level of understanding the importance of light and prioritizing this in our lifestyle through healthy light protocols, as well as through revolutionizing the indoor lighting industry. And this is something that we're working on right now. Yeah. And the more people get aware about the importance of light in our life, the more we could trigger those manufacturers to start thinking of creating light from a perspective of health and from a perspective of biology. So I truly want your support. And I know we can do this together, and always together we're much stronger. And I'm so enthusiastic about this. Yeah. And you could also find us on www.vivarays.com, VIVARAYS. And please, anytime you have any questions about light, about circadian rhythm, about photobiology, you could reach out to me personally at Roudy@vivarays.com, and I'm happy to answer all of your questions as well.
Amazing. Awesome. So great. Thank you so much. We could have just gone on for hours, but we need to be respectful, and we will be hitting you up, no doubt.
Oh, I've already got them in my shopping cart, so you're going to see an order come through from me here shortly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roudy. This was amazing.
Erin, Laura, it's such a pleasure to be with you today and to explore the power of light.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.